Assassin's Creed Mirage has been out for about a week, and I know we have to be a little skeptical, when it comes to any kind of corporate numbers that come out from a business or a corporation. It's always spun in a positive way. But there was an announcement over on Ubisoft's Twitter, the Assassin's Creed Twitter, I should say, that was interesting to me, which was essentially that this game actually has the highest launch in terms of sales to date at Ubisoft when it comes to the PS5, Xbox Series X and S. So any of the Ubisoft games that have come out since the beginning of the PS5 and the Series X and S, Mirage has the highest sales out of all of them. This game was sold, at least in the United States, at 50 USD. Again, I'm sure it was more elsewhere. Australia, I'm looking at you. You guys are always just destroyed when it comes to at least buying physical games. I know that consoles and physical games are just taxed insanely there with, I believe, tariffs and other stuff. It's the same in a lot of countries. When it comes to the United States, though, this was 50 USD, which is about $20 cheaper than most games are now. Most games now are $70, with the Switch being an exception. I found this really interesting for several reasons. First off, this game is not perfect. I'm about 11 hours into it now, and I will have a full review I make. I also wanted to make a top 5 or 2. There's some stuff I really do like in this game I want to talk about, and it is a new game. But I'm about 11 hours-ish in. Some people have already beaten it. A lot of people have more time than I do, which is cool. But I'm really enjoying it. It's got problems. It's not perfect, like I said in my, preliminary review in my first impressions. But as it's gone on, I've enjoyed the characters more. I've noticed this game is much more oriented towards stealth, especially. It's not as oriented towards, getting stats and kind of those RPG mechanics. Some of them are still there, but it's not as oriented towards that. This game, though, it really does try to do what I think that they set out to do. It's not really, it's weird. It's not a full return to the roots, obviously. It's more like an homage to the roots of the Assassin's Creed series, where they went back to stealth and they pushed that a lot. They tried to improve the parkour system from the previous 3 games, and I think they did those things well. But at the same time, before this game came out, I noticed that despite its imperfections, there were a lot of people who were ready to hate this game from day one. And when I say day one, I mean months before it came out. I understand that there's a lot of discontentment in the fan base or communities or whatever around Ubisoft. Ubisoft is not perfect. Ubisoft is not beholden or entitled to our money at all. It's not entitled to $1 of anyone's money. But something I've noticed in my comment sections especially is that a lot of people, especially people just passing through who are not subscribed to the channel, when it comes to Assassin's Creed, anytime it comes up, all they do is whine. All they do is complain. There's never a positive. There's never anything fun. There's never anything cool to talk about. Not a single thing. It's always just, this sucks. This is bad. This is going to be bad. This is going to suck. Anyone who likes this is a moron. Anyone who likes this should self-delete or whatever. There's a lot of vitriol thrown around about this series, which is very bizarre to me because at the end of the day, it's a fictional game series. And people kept complaining and saying, I want this game series to go back to stealth. Oh, if they're going to make more, I want them to go back to these core things. I want them to go back to actually sneaking around. Oh, if they're going to make more, I want them to actually go back to being an assassin, not just being an assassin affiliate. I don't want to be someone who helps the assassins, like Ivor. I don't want to be someone who sort of is a precursor to the assassins themselves, like Cassandra. I don't want that. I want assassins. And then this game comes out, and despite its imperfections, which I will 100% admit are there, it's not a perfect game at all. But this game comes out, and it addresses a lot of that stuff. It pushes towards being about assassins. The whole time you are the assassins. You are working with assassins. Now, they're called the Hidden Ones. I know a lot of people, for some reason, had a hard time understanding that those two groups were pretty much the same in the RPGs, but you're just the assassins. And you're going around working with the Brotherhood. You're working directly with a mentor the entire time. I mean, this game is very tied into the idea of being an assassin and working your way up the ranks of being an assassin. I would say the last time that I've seen something this dedicated to that idea of like being integrated into the Brotherhood was maybe Unity. And before that, it was probably like Assassin's Creed 1. And I'm talking like you're not someone that important. Like you're not Ezio where you become the master assassin and then you're in charge of it for the whole time. I'm talking like you're kind of starting at the bottom, you're working through the Brotherhood, you're getting you're going up. The last time I've seen that was maybe Unity in terms of really pushing that idea. And obviously, you have Bayek in Origins, but that's establishing the assassins. I'm talking about being integrated in the Brotherhood, working your way up that kind of ladder of ranks. This game really did that. And people said, I really want stealth back. I really want, these more creative ways to get around. This game did that again. This game did a lot of stuff that people asked for. I want the parkour to be faster. This game did that again. Now, it also missed a lot of stuff that people did request. A lot of people want the manual climbing system back in at least one game. I'm right there with you. I want that back too. A lot of people want the bugginess to be worked out. I do too. But it's weird to me that a lot of these issues for Mirage are ignored in other games that people love. So for example, the buggy climbing in Mirage, better than I would say, I truly believe it's better than it was in Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. Faster, more fluid. I think it's more actually, oriented around being an assassin and more like the Baghdad itself is very much designed to be traversed with parkour and with free running and jumping across roofs and stuff. I would say it's much better designed in that way than the 3 RPG games before it. But something I've noticed is that there are glitches with climbing. Absolutely. But those things are ignored and for some reason dismissed in games like Assassin's Creed 4. 4 is always being brought up as everybody's favorite. Like, oh, it's the best ever. And I think 4 is probably a better game than Mirage. I'm totally honest with you. I think it probably is. But it's weird to me that there are problems with Mirage that I keep seeing tons of complaints about, but those things are totally fine in previous games that came out. Even old games prior to the RPGs, nobody cared. Nobody complains about them. Like when glitches come up for AC4, people think it's funny. When they come up for Mirage, it's like, this game's a buggy mess. It's not worth the $50 that it cost to buy. Oh, and I also see a lot of misconceptions about the game too. I don't want to sound like Assassin's Creed Mirage fanboy 404. I'm not. This is not my favorite Assassin's Creed game. Off top of my head, Revelations, 3, 4, probably Unity, Syndicate. I don't know. They're probably 2. Those are all games I think I like more than Mirage. But it's also not at all the worst. It's not near the bottom of the series by any means, in my opinion. So I don't understand why the problems that Mirage has, especially for the price point it has, which is significantly cheaper than any other game. I mean, games have not been, like games in AAA on standard PlayStation, Xbox hardware, they haven't really been this price since I was a kid. And so with this price point, with trying to address these flaws, and with reaching these milestones of being such a high success, I'm not saying everyone has to like the game. You're free to not like it. But it's weird to me that a lot of the things that people wanted this game to do, it, within the confines it had, tried its best to do that, and I think generally did a good job. But still there's a lot of people who just aren't happy, and I genuinely think there's some people who will never be happy with this series. I don't think you have to slobber everything up and buy every game. I didn't buy the RPGs at full price. I bought them way after they came out for about $20 a piece, maybe. I think one of them I got used for like $10 because to me, I still enjoy those games, but they're not the peak of what I like about Assassin's Creed. They're just not. So I didn't buy them new because it just wasn't really something I wanted, and I have limited money. But this game was really going back to some more of the stuff that I personally really appreciate about the series, and it seems like a lot of people do because they were willing to support it, buy it, and it had an insane launch. The point I wanted to get to with all of this is that it's weird to me, though, that there's so many complaints about this game that are just ignored in previous games, and so many of those previous games that are lauded as like the greatest thing ever, that are totally worth your money. But this game that's significantly cheaper isn't, off of some weird standards that the others aren't held to, and off of misconceptions about it, like how, oh, this game started out as a DLC, you can see it was just a cash grab. But when you actually listen to what the dev team says, I think a lot of people, they heard DLC and their ears started ringing and their heads started to balloon into like, the old Airheads commercial where they'd turn into a big red balloon and then explode. I think that's what happened because when you actually listen to those interviews behind the scenes, this was thought about as a DLC for about 2 weeks. Like during the planning stages of this game, they literally said, yeah, for about 2 weeks we thought about making this a DLC. Then we decided that the scope of what this idea was going to be to explore Bassam, to do a character study on that person, to go back into a new setting, all this stuff. We realized that that was going to be something that needed more. It needed to be a game, not just a DLC, a game. And so they went that direction. But a lot of people just heard it was originally planned to be a DLC, and they're like, oh, see, they split the DLC off. It was a huge ripoff. But it's like there's a lot of games, too, in the past, like Red Dead Redemption with Undead Nightmare. They did the same thing. You could buy it as a DLC, obviously, at that time, so I will give you that. But it was also a full-on retail release game, just cheaper. And people ate it up. And that's kind of what's weird to me is I will give you an example here of what I'm talking about, too. I think we all have our exceptions to everything. For example, I'm not a huge fan of microtransactions. I'm just not. I kind of miss when games used to just be all on the disc. It was just the game. There you go. I'm old. Nowadays, there's a lot of games that are not that. And usually I don't engage with those games, but there are certain games that I will engage with. Games like, I'm making a video, I think, soon about Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis. That game is wanting my money a lot. It also gives out a lot of stuff for free, so I don't really feel like I have to spend much, if any, money on it at all for a free game. But even though I don't like microtransactions that much, I do make an exception for that game because I love the world, I love the characters, I love all this stuff. But what I don't understand about what we're talking about here is it's almost the opposite. It's like people will make exceptions for games that do far worse than what Assassin's Creed ever went to. I will see people whine and complain about Mirage, who are then excited online for things like Madden or NBA 2K or WWE. And it's like these games are doing everything you hate times 50, but that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to make an apples to oranges comparison. I know now that, like, everybody got their poli-sci teacher to teach them logical fallacies. Everyone throws around, like, apples to oranges and ad hominem and all this shit without knowing what it means anytime someone brings up a comparison of two things. But my point is just, it's weird to me that Mirage has gotten so much heat and so much hate when it's doing so well, and the people who are doing that, it's not that they owe Mirage their money, but I don't think they realize that if you don't support the idea of the concepts of what Mirage was going for, if you still care about this series at all other than just to bitch about it, you're never going to see what you want to see out of it. Like even this smaller game that has problems, you're never going to see them return to stealth gameplay. You're never going to see them fully return to the assassins themselves. You're just going to see them, lead up to it or kind of tease it or kind of push the narrative around the Isu and the First Civilization and stuff because they have such a wide array of lore they can pull from there. That's what you're going to see because Valhalla, Odyssey, Origins, say what you want about them, they have an insane sales. They did very well. And you know what else did very well in them? The in-game shops. We can all complain about it, but they did. People bought a ton of those cosmetics. There's a few I even have I thought were cool. I'll tell you that. I don't buy them all. There's a couple I thought were really neat that were very cheap I got. But here's the point. The point is when things like this come out, people who are like, oh, I want single player experiences back. Oh, I want this, I want that. And then they do come out, right? Like they push the things you're asking for, or they start to go back in that direction. And people say, not enough, not good enough. And they don't buy it. It's not doing what you think. It's not making them go like, oh no, well, we have to go further in that direction. What they see, if Mirage tanked, here's what Ubisoft would do. They would say, okay, well, clearly people liked Valhalla better. Let's just go back to that. That makes money. It's not doing what you think. That's what I don't understand. This is the same thing. I've seen this too with Marvel. People will watch MCU movies and they'll complain about it, and rightfully so a lot of times because some of them just are not up to par. But then when they try to go back and do what they like, I saw this with Spider-Man No Way Home. People didn't like the previous 2 Spider-Man movies. No Way Home came out, tried to be a celebration of Spider-Man. It tried to bring back all these characters and do right by them and all this stuff. And there were people who were still like, I'm not seeing it because I didn't like the previous two. I'm just not gonna. And it's like, well, let's say that came out and tanked. They would just say, well, yeah, people complained about the previous two, but the previous two did really well, so let's just keep doing that. Like, do people not get this, that when the thing starts to actually do what you want it to do, you don't owe it your money, but also there's really no point to complain about it if you're not willing to engage with it now, you know? You don't have to go buy the games you don't like. In fact, if you're the biggest fan of Odyssey ever and you hate the direction of Mirage, the same thing goes to you. You don't have to buy Mirage just because you liked Odyssey. In fact, you probably shouldn't because you don't like the direction they're going now. That makes sense. That's logical. That's fair. But the people who are like snubbing this game, turning their noses up at it, like, oh, well, it was originally a DLC, or, oh, well, it's not good enough. You know, it's not enough in the direction I want. It's like, you have to realize this game with Ubisoft, I believe it was Bordeaux, the studio, they were put in the confines of, you have a smaller budget, you are making a smaller game. Yes, you can make it a full game, but because this was originally pitched as a DLC for a couple weeks, that's kind of what we thought it was going to be. So now you are kind of stuck on that Valhalla engine, you're stuck on that RPG engine, you're going to have to do the best you can with what you got. Well, just because they didn't get the Unity engine, which I would have preferred, you know, like to have the same engine they had back in Unity and Syndicate, or just because they didn't bring back manual climbing from Revelations, which I loved as well, it doesn't mean that the game is bad. It just means it's taking steps in the direction you want it to be, right? That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that unfortunately these business people, they always think with money. They always think with their wallets. We can talk about stuff all we want. I talk about stuff to start conversations because, one, I'm passionate about it. It matters to me. And two, I like the conversation getting started because sometimes I don't consider myself an influencer at all. But sometimes when I say something or we talk about something or someone brings up a point in the comments and I think about it, what that does is it changes opinions. It changes minds. It engages discussion. And those things go on to actually affect the sales numbers. Because let's say that a new Spider-Man game comes out and it's absolutely awful, horrible. And, you know, I talk about it and 20,000 people see it. And each one of them tells two people. You know, well, now you have like 60,000 people have heard about it, right? And there's discussion going on. And then those 60,000 people are making decisions. At the end of the day, me, my personal self, I could buy the collector's edition of Mirage or I could not buy it at all. That is a drop in the bucket that doesn't matter. But when you get those 60,000 people, right, talking about something, all of a sudden this money adds up. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm actually happy with the way that this game went. I'm not trying to complain about people who don't exist. My point is just that I've seen a lot of this in my comments. I've seen a lot of this on Twitter. I've seen a lot of this on Reddit, where it's like anytime people like this game, other people are like, well, you just like mediocrity, or, oh, well, you're just fine with the series stagnating, or, oh, well, you're not allowed to have fun. And it's like, bitch, what is the problem with somebody having fun? What's the problem with someone liking this? At the end of the day, if I like this game, or I like a microtransaction fest like Ever Crisis, or I like Fallout 76, or I love Baldur's Gate 3, I'm a drop in the bucket. What matters is what other people do with that. What matters is where they spend their money, you know? You can play whatever you want, but like, if you just ignore every time a game series tries to go the direction you want it to, they're not going to go further that direction to please you. They're just going to retreat. They're going to go the other direction. Companies play everything safe. I'm actually shocked this game even came out. Because, as beholden to the Valhalla RPG engine as it is, as glitchy as it can be, this game really was very obviously made by a group of developers who were doing their best to push within those confines back towards what made this series so loved in the first place. The best they could with the limitations they had of budget, time, engine, etc. They were trying to go that direction. It is very clearly a product of effort, this game. Not a product of perfection, but a product of effort. And I personally think when you do listen to the fans, when you do try and address criticisms, when you do try and do those things that they want, it makes me personally annoyed then when there's groups of those people where it's never good enough. It'll never be good enough. too late, you missed your shot. Because if it's too late, you missed your shot, why are we still talking about it? You know, when I talk about Spider-Man comics absolutely sucking, yes, it's funny, and it's fun to talk about because it's silly to clown on the writers and the editorial a little bit. But the reason I do that is because I want them to improve. I want enough people to see that they go, oh, wow, these suck. I'm not going to buy this. This is bad. Or, oh, wow, these suck. I'm going to say something because I want them to be better. It's not because I just want them to fail. It seems to me like with Assassin's Creed, for whatever reason, there is a huge contingent of people who used to like these games who don't actually want them to improve. They don't actually want them to get better. They don't actually want them to address the criticisms they have. What they want is for the games to just fail. And I don't understand it. You know, you can have your opinions on it. Like, I think that they should push Splinter Cell more. That's a fair opinion. You know, I think that they should go back to some of their old stuff and do that, not just push Assassin's Creed. That's a fair opinion. But if you're a fan of Assassin's Creed and you want it to go a direction and it starts walking that way and you just try and trip it and knock it on its ass and then beat the shit out of it while it's on the ground, it's like it's not going to keep going that way. It's going to get up and run the other direction. They're playing it safe. Companies do not care. They care about money. So I don't understand why there's a contingent of fans who just want this game to fail, who didn't want it to do good. In fact, who were upset at its success, who wanted it to be on sale and weren't willing to support it for $50. It's just bizarre to me. I don't know. I think that it's weird to me. I don't really understand it. There's a lot of people who just want the games to fail. So at that point, I feel like it's just worth paying attention to something else. I just don't understand it. If you want more games in styles like this, then when the game starts to go that direction, people should support it. Because otherwise, you're just not going to see it again. I don't get what's so hard to understand about that, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts below. I'm interested to hear the few people about how I'm a shill and how I enjoyed the RPG, so my opinion doesn't matter and I should self-delete and all that shit you always see thrown around about these games is so pathetic and silly to me. But I think at the end of the day, it's cool that people are having fun with it. I'm glad it was successful. I want them to fix the problems with this going forward. Work with a better engine, please, for the love of God. Facial animations used to be better, climbing used to be better, but this is such a step in the right direction that it's so weird to me that people don't want it to do well. I don't know. I don't get it. Maybe somebody can explain it to me, but I don't know. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I'm interested to hear your opinions on it as well. I hope you do have a fantastic day. It means a lot to me that you checked out this video. It was a bit of a long rant, but it just kind of pissed me off. So, as always, have a fantastic day and stay shui.